So hello, welcome to the episode of Flying High with Flutter. I'm your host, Alan Wyma. Today I'm with the creator of MQTT client, Steve Hamblett. Welcome, Steve. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, well, it's good to have you on because as we're talking about, I do hear once in a while people talking about MQTT, but I think a lot of people don't really understand like what is MQTT and why they should use it. I feel like people just kind of use it because people say to use it. I don't know if you've ever heard the same thing or thought the same or not, but that's been my perception. A lot of people just use things because people say, what do I use? I want to do this thing, right? So maybe you
Yeah,
can help to kind of clear the air about what is MQTT, and we'll start from there first.
yeah. MQTT is a well-established industrial protocol. It's been used in industry for many years. It was originally made for lightweight exchange of information between constrained devices, constrained boards, and central systems. So it's got quite a heavy background, of usage in that world. But certainly in later years, it became more use of IoT platforms. All the major cloud providers, IoT subsystems like Google Cloud, AWS use MQTT brokers to speak to things. So it's found an inroad into the IoT world from its industrial background. And it's also used in chat room applications. A lot of people are using it for the chat room kind of thing because, like you say, people Google and it comes up, what can I use as a chat room application? It comes up as MQTT, so it just follows on from itself.
It's actually quite interesting because most of the major chat protocols I can think of are actually using like eJabber, like that XML based chatting, right? Like WhatsApp, I think is. We were talking before the show. You're from UK, and I know in UK everybody's using WhatsApp, right? And that's based on I think it's eJabber protocol, which is like an XML based kind of format, right? But I think nobody really knows too much about that one. Kind of MQTT, as you said, kind of stole the show, and people are talking about that. And it's funny that you mentioned it because actually I've never heard of MQTT using for chat.
Yeah.
So I thought that's quite surprising to hear that. Like, do you know where that came from? Because it's such a, it's not. It was maybe I have so many questions, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can answer that one, and then because you also the other thing I wanted to ask about is you said industry, like which specific industry? Because industry is such a huge term, right?
Yeah. It would be usually on the larger end SCADA systems. Certainly, utilities companies use it. Engineering companies use it. It's used in industrial control of machines, things like that. So it's come from a fairly heavy industrial background in its essence. And like I say, it's mutated over time. I think one of the reasons it's used a lot in the chat room area is because it's so simple to map topics to people and groups of people in a room. You can easily say, if you call a topic Fred, then you're talking to Fred. There's nothing hard about it in that respect. So it's found a use there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's. I was just taking a look at the Wikipedia page to kind of get a quick idea. Of course, Wikipedia is not the best source, but I think it's usually pretty okay. Yeah. Apparently, the MQ and MQTT stands for message queue, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So that would mean there's some kind of queue, right? But I mean,
there is. Yeah.
How does that kind of work?
It's not a direct exchange. It's not a point-to-point messaging system. There has to be an MQTT broker, which is a service. And it sits somewhere on the network that all the clients can speak to, and that's how the clients exchange information with each other. They send it to the broker, and the broker then, depending on what the clients ask for, sends it to other connected clients. So it is a centralized protocol. It's not like a Fediverse kind of protocol where everybody can speak, and there's no real central control. So you do need to host a broker somewhere if you're using MQTT. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, we're kind of bringing in some new terms. I know exactly what you're talking about because I did a lot of work with RabbitMQ, which is kind of similar. I think they have a MQTT like adapter.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff involved with a message broker, right? So we're talking about MQTT. It's a protocol, but you have to talk to a broker, right? We're starting to get into what do you call it? Like an avalanche of new terms. I think we need to start to explain what's going on, right? Because once you say broker and pub sub, even a lot of people don't even know what is pub sub, to be honest.
Yeah,
So I don't know if
okay.
you can start to explain some of these bigger topics as we're talking about the stack, right? Maybe we can talk about in terms of like the end-to-end kind of stack, right? So first we have an MQTT client,
Yeah.
right? That would be, such as a Flutter device or some kind of IoT or any kind of device that speaks MQTT.
Sorry, you start with a client. You need a number of clients. They can all be on different devices. They can be on any devices that can host, whatever language you've got the client in this case, Dart, obviously. And they can basically publish or subscribe to what are called topics. So if you have a topic called sensor status, the client on a particular platform can publish to a topic called sensor status that all the other clients can then subscribe to find out what's going on with your sensor status. So it's pub sub, but it's a both way pub sub. The client that's publishing can also subscribe to topics as well, and the actual feeding of the messages to clients who have subscribed is done by the broker. So the intelligence is in the broker. The clients really only maintain the protocol packets, which is all in the MQTT spec. There is an official spec for this, ISO spec for it. So all everything has to conform to that. But unlike, like you say, RabbitMQ, it's more lightweight than that. It doesn't have the weight of stored messages that you can get in more heavier MQ solutions. The protocol's lighter, and its facilities aren't quite as expansive. But it does essentially do the same thing. Yeah.
Wait, did I hear you say that there's no storing of the messages? Did I hear that properly?
No, there's no actual storage of messages in the broker. It will send you. You can get it to send you the last known message. Yeah, the protocol does support that, but it's not. It's meant to be more lightweight. If you miss messages, then it's up to you to ensure that the person publishing those messages keeps publishing them. Status messages generated regularly, so that if you miss some, it doesn't matter. When you reconnect, you get the latest anyway. Yeah, you don't need a big recovery like you would do on a more of a heavy message queuing solution where every message you miss could affect your system.
Well, that sounds a little bit annoying to the fact of like if you're using this for a chatting app and then you're offline for a second, you go back online, you're missing messages, no?
Yeah, yes, you can do that. Yeah, if you come offline, you will just get you can ask for the last message, but anything you've missed in that gap, yeah, there is no retransmit in the spec. I'm not saying some brokers won't do that, but it's not normal to do that in MQTT.
Yeah, because that's where that comes to my mind. Like, wait, I'll be missing messages if I don't do this properly, right? And I know there's different types of message queues. Like I said, I work with RabbitMQ. I think there's an extra queue where they like replay from beginning to end all the messages that are sent to a topic, which of course would be kind of nice, but at the same time could be too many things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can use filtering on topics, and there is quality of service indicators. There are three quality of service levels. There's the basic one where you subscribe to a topic and you listen to messages. If you miss one, then you wouldn't know anything about it. You've just missed it. But there's two other levels of service, 2 and 3, where the protocol exchanges messages. It's more like a TCP level protocol where you have to acknowledge that you've received a message. And and the level 3 quality is even higher again. There's a double handshake. So as long as you keep the connection, you do have guarantees that you will receive messages. You will know if you don't. But if the connection fails, yeah, that's when you don't necessarily have the recovery facilities of something like MQ.
Okay. So I mean, there's different types of these kind of things where it's like at most one message or like at least one message.
Yeah,
So by default, is it just fire and forget? And if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you don't. And there'll never be a resend of something. Unless, of course, you have the one with the acknowledgement.
yeah. If you use the basic quas, yeah, you publish to a topic and it goes to the broker, and you don't know whether people have received that message or necessarily whether the broker's processed it. That you can use as fire and forget. But if that's really for the where you're publishing constant status messages, so people only really need to know the last message. If you're publishing a constant stream of messages, yeah, then it's not so important that you lose some. If you're publishing command messages, where say on a UI, a user presses a button to initiate a command, you really need to know that that's been processed and dealt with properly. Yeah, so that's your higher cost levels. Um, Again, it was made to be particularly as lightweight as possible because in the early days the devices it was running on were very constrained memory wise and processing wise. They didn't have the boards that we have now, so there are compromises in replay. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's interesting that you have different types of those are the what would you call that? Is that called a queue? So it's every broker has many queues, or are you talking about this is at the topic level? It's the topic level we're talking about with the
it's just topics. Yeah, a topic is a name. You could have like house, bedroom, back bedroom.
okay.
Yeah, and you can step the topic down like that, and you can filter on everything for the house, everything for the upstairs of the house, everything for a room in the upstairs of the house. Yeah, but it is a simple topic subscription and publish method. Yeah, sorry, if you have to know the topics. You can't say to the broker, "Give me all your topics." You have to know the ones you want. Yeah, so when you design your system, you will know what topics have been created, who's publishing to them, and who needs to subscribe from them.
Okay, so we have the client that connects. You have the broker that does basically the what would you call that? The dealing, right? If we're playing blackjack, right? They'd be like the dealer, the one who's kind of handing out all the messages.
Yeah,
You got topics, which are the client publishes to, and clients also listen from, or
yeah.
listens to. My English is getting worse. Is it published to and listened to? I think so.
It's published to and subscribed to, which is listened to.
Supposed to subscribe to. Yeah. Okay. And this is all run over TCP/IP, right?
Yeah, it's run over TCP. That can be secure working. It's also run over WebSockets. That can be server-side WebSockets or browser-based WebSockets. Yeah, this is all in the standard of what ports to use and things. So it's all documented. Yeah.
And I mean, that's basically it, right? Is there anything else that we're missing? Those are all the pieces.
All the pieces of what? Sorry.
Is it all the kind of the big pieces, right? So you got a client, you got a broker, and you have a topic. Those three pieces are what make up basically MQTT, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like I say, it's meant to be simple. Yeah, it's meant to be simple. Yeah, as simple as possible, simple as lightweight as possible, whilst still delivering a certain level of service. Yeah, so it is quite simple to use. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because I'm thinking back to my days of RabbitMQ because that's the one I know the most. I mean, you have a connection, you got a channel, you have a
Yeah,
queue, you have I think there's even one or two more things.
yeah, yeah.
It's very complicated but powerful.
It's much more powerful, but MQTT is much lighter weight, as I say, than that. Yeah.
So you've been working with MQTT for some time because it seems like you know it extremely well.
Well, yeah. When I was working, I worked on a lot of high-end SCADA systems. MQTT was just one part of that solution, usually. So I've been using it for many years. In fact, at work. And what happened with the MQTT client, why that came about in the Dart world was, the usual open source story of scratching your own itch. I needed one, and so I wrote one. Yeah, and that's how it came into being. I was looking at using Dart in the IoT world, and I wrote a few Medium articles on that. And I needed a client to connect to Google Clouds, MQTT broker. So that's where it came from for that, and it really took off from there. I didn't realise at the time how popular it sort of would become.
Wow. So you're a little bit like a celebrity now in the MQTT world.
I think I'm the only person that publishes anything to do with MQTT. So yeah, on that basis, yeah, but I thought it would just be used by IoT guys, board maker board kind of people, and it really didn't. It just exploded. But I've got issues from all kinds of users. You wouldn't believe the ingenuity of what people can do to make this thing into something that it was never really designed for, but they do it anyway.
Well, that's what engineers do, right? We over-engineer,
yeah.
and then we also go on the other end and we do things that we probably shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, what else can I use this for? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, really, isn't it?
Well, what now got me kind of curious. Like, what has been one of the most interesting things that people have used your MQTT client library for that you know of?
Interesting things. There was a company in America using it for a fairly involved system that they were putting together, that they contacted me about for some support on that, and their system was quite interesting. It's certainly a system that I didn't think you would use the MQTT in, where you would probably use something like you said, a bit more heavy like MQ, but no, they wanted MQTT and they made it work. But I think the more interesting thing to me is the people using it just for message exchange. Purely as a lightweight message exchanger. I've got lots of issues in it over the years. 5 years now, by the way, it's been going. But and the vast majority of the users do seem to be using it in that manner. So it's quite interesting, really.
Okay. Wow. I mean, I didn't know it was that long. 5 years. Wow. That's a long time to be working on a project, right? I mean, has things changed a lot since when you first did it to now?
The basic functionality hasn't changed. A lot of users requested auto-reconnect. Originally, if you lost the connection, you could monitor it, then you had to connect yourself. But I put an auto-reconnect functionality in. That was a big boon to a lot of users. That again made it far more useful to people. So that's really the only big thing that's been added. Yes, there's been bugs, obviously. When you publish a package, you have to maintain it. Yeah. So over the years, I've been maintaining, fixing the bugs that have been reported, enhancing it for some users where needed. But package maintenance is part of your life, isn't it? In us, you can't, you don't just publish something then abandon it or leave it. Or, you have to maintain it if you use this, and that's where the payback comes, because you get people raising issues saying if it wasn't for this package, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now at work and things like this, and it's really good in that respect.
Okay, that's got to be a great feeling, right? That you're kind of some of the backbone of some of these interesting projects now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it makes it worthwhile because, as you know, a lot of open source guys, when you work in a full-time job, it's difficult to find the time to maintain your open source work. Especially when you have more than one package. I think I've got about, I don't know how many it is now, 10, which I've been made back to 2013, in fact, for one of them. So yeah, it can be difficult juggling time, but your users can get stuck without you helping them. So you find the time, and it is a good payback when you get thanks for it. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's always the trickiest part. I know so many people who've been burnt out in open source because, I mean, in some communities, right, you don't get a thank you. You get a why is this thing not better? Where is this feature? And you get this kind of not so nice language, right?
Yeah, fortunately, certainly with the issues I've had on my packages in general, I don't know whether it's just because it's the Dart Flutter community. It tends not to be like that. It tends to be constructive, but you do get the odd person, that says, "Why have you not done this?" As you say, "Why have you not done this?" So I say, "Well, no one's asked for it, so well, I'm asking for it." Fine, I'll put it on the list, but if no one else does, don't expect it to be done quickly because there are other features that lots of other people are asking for instance. So, you concentrate on what most of your users want, don't you? Or I do. Yeah.
Well, I'm also kind of curious too because to me, Of course, I don't have as many years as you do, probably in programming, but I've been around for some time, and my kind of understanding is most of the Flutter community is quite young, right? They're still this may be their first and maybe only programming language and framework, right? I think I said Flutter, but Flutter, Dart, they're kind of almost one and the same at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, has there been like some? I don't know. I like. Do you feel that that's made things? I don't even know what you even call that, like more interesting because, like you said, you've been working with other languages in the past, right? Because you're going to get people asking questions, and you're like, "Oh, this is so obvious," or "I never thought about that." Sometimes people say, "Hey, because he doesn't have that baggage of 30 years of Java, he's
Yeah.
actually asked me a question that I never thought about."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've been constantly surprised, like say, what usage it's been put to, and the questions that I have been asked. I sometimes think, well, why? What are they trying to do with this? But there's never a dumb question. Your users are your users, and if they need help, then you should help them. I
Yeah,
certainly wouldn't talk to my open source users like I did to guys at work who I've been working with for 20 years, because they shouldn't be asking dumb questions. They really shouldn't be.
yeah,
But your users who are using your package, yeah, ask anything and I will try and help you. Even if you go over the same ground over and over again, it doesn't matter to me. You've got to be helpful as you can, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, when you were talking about the auto reconnect feature, like, was your first thought like, I mean, you could monitor it, you could just reconnect it. Like, why do you need this auto reconnect? What made you kind of change your mind?
Basically, the users, I got a couple of users asking for it, then I got more. Then I got more users asking for it. So I thought, well, although this is manual way of doing it, there's a disconnect callback. So when you get disconnected, it disconnects you, yeah, and you can just manually instigate the connection again. And I thought that would be sufficient, but a lot of users said it would be really. We want this to be unattended. Can you automatically retry connection for us? Yeah, and only tell us when you give up or it fails. And I looked at the problem. It wasn't particularly easy to fix, but it was doable. So I actually built that in. That was the last big update to the package, and it was well received. You know, so it was worth doing if you see what I mean. You get that feeling that this wasn't in vain. Yeah,
Well, I mean, the more interesting kind of thing to me is sometimes I may want to have a custom backoff strategy, right? Like, why do I losing the connection? Is it the guy's in an airplane and he's got his phone on and he's not able to connect because he's in airplane mode? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of thoughts that come to my mind. And obviously, you'd obviously say, okay, well, am I in airplane mode? Oh, I am. Then don't bother to reconnect, right? Like, so
yeah,
I like the original idea almost more because it's slightly more work, but at the same time, I can really customize it because sometimes you have really weird situations that happen, right?
yeah, yeah. That's right. That was my original view. Give the user the
Yeah,
means to do what he wants to do as easily as you can. Yeah, but some users did want this, like I said, this auto reconnect functionality to just work. They didn't want
yeah,
to do the manual side. They didn't want to monitor the platform to see if they've gone from wireless to GSM and are they in background and has it disconnected and etc. They just wanted something to try again and tell me if it worked. So that's how it ended up. But you're right. I think it's far more flexible. If you know your use case, then it's more flexible to do it yourself. Yeah.
well, now I'm kind of curious, like, so because you and I both know that things happen, right?
Yeah.
I would call it shit happens, basically,
Yeah, it
and
does.
you have
Yeah,
to kind of
all
be,
the time, all the time.
yeah. I mean, partitions happen all the time, and let alone like who knows what. Like you said, switching from Wi-Fi to GSM, that's a disconnect, right?
Yeah,
Airplane mode, that's a disconnect. Switching apps could potentially be a disconnect.
yeah.
Killing the app obviously is a disconnect. There's so many ways that you could disconnect. What kind of strategy did you think was going to be a good case to cover a majority? Because I'm sure you probably didn't cover all possible cases because that's nearly impossible.
No, I took the decision early on not to get involved with what the platform is doing. That is definitely in the user's hand. I mean, say you take an Android app that goes into background. Yeah, the the client may just disconnect, and that's all the client needs to do. It doesn't need to know why. That's really up to the user, and to bring it and what happens when it comes out of background. what happens when you change networks, what happens when you, like you say, go into airplane mode. The client can't possibly cater for every single thing that could happen on the network or on a mobile device. Yeah, it's not possible. So my approach was to give enough facility in the package and enough, callbacks and methods on the class so that the user could do what they needed to do flexibly, in a flexible manner, so that they could build whatever resilience they wanted. Yeah, the client really only gives them the resilience of the MQTT protocol.
Yeah, and you have a very interesting name on pub.dev. Is that Darticulate?
Yeah, it's it's the English word articulate, yeah, which means you're versed in something, and I just put a D on the front because it was Dart. So you're versed in Dart, you're Darticulate. Seemed appropriate at the time. It's just stuck over the years now.
Sorry, I was just taking a look. I just want to see more about your package as we're chatting, see if anything else is coming to mind. Yeah, but I like that, you add this stuff. That's interesting about iOS. You have to add this NS Bonjour services.
Yeah.
I've never even seen that before.
Yeah, that was contributed by one of the users. The users do contribute stuff, that they find. I've never used it on iOS, to be honest with you. And the users come to me and say, hey, this is a good tip for other iOS users. And that gets incorporated into the documentation where I can. Yeah. There's lots of examples in the examples directory. That's come in very handy over the years. I've had users contribute AWS examples. And it just builds up over time, from what your users are contributing to you as well. It's not all just you.
And this is some good stuff in here.
It's getting fairly mature now. You can tell by the amount of bugs that are raised, issues that are raised are now falling off a little bit compared to, say, a peak of two, maybe 3 years ago, when you had the rush of usage, plus the rush of new users, plus the web bugs, obviously. So it seems to be dying off a little bit now. So, which I think is a good thing.
This is interesting. Yeah, you just also have some people just asking questions on here. How do I do this? How do I do that on your issues? It's interesting.
Yeah, that's where there's no such thing as a dumb question. Even though I've been asked it about 80 times before, you still have a look at this example or read this bit of the spec, or don't dismiss them as, oh, go and read the docs. I don't like doing that. I have on occasion. It gets frustrating sometimes when you're busy and under pressure, but I really can't beat myself up about it when I do it. I often go back on the post and sort of apologise and say sorry about that reply. I was a bit, tired at the time, kind of thing. But I really try to help the users.
You have some pretty big numbering over here, though. You went from 1.0 all the way up to 10.0 as the latest release, right? That's some big changes, right? If you're following semantic versioning.
Yeah, that's right. Obviously, if we change the API in any way on the main class, we up version. But two of those large ones were transition to Dart 2 and transition to Dart 3. Yeah. Semantically, they really shouldn't have gone up version number, but I do it to see. I can see a visible breakpoint there. It's just really. And yeah, the others have been enough of change in the main API. Yeah. To warrant it. But that's over 5 years. That's only 2 a year. Is it? Doesn't look that bad from that respect.
It seems quite big though, because most libraries, there's so many libraries nowadays that don't even hit 10. Or sorry, they don't even hit 1. They stay 0 dot whatever for forever.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've seen it. I don't know why. I don't know why people would do it, but it's their package. They can number it as they wish, can't they? People.
Yeah. Well, I know of one package I actually use in production a lot. It's not even hit 1.0 for between 3 to 5 years, but they're still trying to figure out their API because they keep adding more and more good features. So it's like, well, how can I go to 1.0 and then I keep adding in new stuff? I'm not ready to make the commit yet, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and plus the fact you don't want to go from 1.0 to say 2.0 and have a massive amount of stuff put in and make it so different. The reason, one of the reasons I do the release little and often is you rarely get that massive change of it looks completely different because it shocks your users. then you start getting issues. Why have you changed this? Why have you done that? I don't understand this anymore. So I try and avoid that where possible.
Oh God, you're starting to remind me of like, I've seen so many people complain like, oh, I just upgraded and like I have to completely rewrite my entire app. Like you really ruined my day, right?
Yeah, yeah. I would hope that I haven't done that on any of my packages to people. That I have strived not to do that. Yeah, you may
Yeah.
find some that would disagree with me, but that is a definite goal of it's. I know how difficult it is to rewrite things when libraries suddenly change, and not just in the Dart
Yeah.
world, in software world in general. It can be quite a burden. So I do definitely try and avoid that.
Well, that's interesting. It's cool that you got the Dart 3 already because so many libraries are not quite ready yet, right? And not everybody's going to be on the Dart 3 yet. Are you going to be maintaining like two forks, like one that's Dart 2 and then Dart 3 and then eventually stop supporting Dart 2, or you just jumped around to Dart 3 and said forget it?
Well, I moved to Dart 3 as soon as it came out. That was version 10. Now, if you still want to stay on 2, you can just use the version underneath it. Well, whatever, I can't remember what version it was now, but 9.7 something or other. The 10 version is just Dart 3. It's not 10 plus loads of fixes. So you're not losing anything by using 9.7.1 if you want to stay on Dart 2. However, any fixes that go in now will go on top of 10. So eventually it will fall away. Yeah. But eventually people should be adopting Dart 3 anyway. Yeah. So it's just a break point now so we can pull away from. But yeah, I wouldn't rip the carpet out of under people and say, you can now only use this package on Dart 3. Yeah, it's too much, like I say, it's too much of an ask, really.
I mean, if you're trying to get the latest version, you're kind of asking that right now, right? I mean, I know what you're saying. Like, it's just the migration, but at the same time, I mean, like you said, anything new, they'll be missing out.
Anything new, they will be missing out. Yeah, like I said, but hopefully they will transition eventually. I imagine the whole ecosystem will transition eventually. Then they'll pick up what they need. Obviously, they only need the new things if they need it. They may not need it anyway. Yeah. So until I get issues of people shouting at me about it, if I ever do, that's the kind of thing I follow across all my packages. In fact,
I'm actually so curious right now about, your background, right? So because I just browsing through the README, and you mentioned that this is a port of a C#, and I think you mentioned that you worked with Java before, right? So did you start off working with Java initially?
No, not Java. C or C++ initially. That was I started. I started in 1985. It's very old. Very old. I retired last year, in fact, from a permanent job. Took my pension, so now I've got a lot more time to devote to Dart and my packages, which is good. Yeah, it's good for me. But yeah, no, starting the C++ world, latterly C#. Yeah, and I've done this a few times with my packages. One of the fastest ways of saying I want a Dart client, but I want it now. Yeah, because I'm doing something. If you can look at an existing Dart MQTT client, yeah, in another language that you're comfortable with, like C++ or C#, that's well tested, seems to have a good user base, doesn't have too many issues. The guy's been maintaining it for years. It's easier to start with that and port it to Dart, I find, than it is to work out the protocol and create one from scratch in Dart. Although doing it that way, it would be more Dart, like it would be more like idiomatic Dart. Porting from another language, you always end up with compromises. Yeah, but obviously you have to know that other language in as much depth as you know Dart to do it with. But I've certainly found that a useful starting point when you want something relatively quickly. So yeah, that's what I'm with MQTT. It's also got a sister package, MQTT5 client, which is exactly the same look at the MQTT5 protocol. So it's just an easier way of putting it together.
Well, I'm just kind of curious about like what got you into Dart to begin with, because it is such a, I don't know, it's such a kind of a niche language. Like because you're mostly working with Dart, not really Flutter, right?
Yeah, when it first came out, I think it was it 2011 or 2012. I can't remember now. And yeah, I was always fascinated. I was fascinated by the fact that you could run it in it and run it in the browser at the same time. We always struggled with at work, separating. You probably know all this front end from back end kind of stuff. And I just got into it. I just stuck with it. And over time, of course, it's got massively better now. You've got AOT, the WASM's coming on stream soon, isn't it? RISC-V's coming on stream. Flutter gave it a big boost. I do use Flutter. I do some, but only for Linux desktop development. I put some little apps together for me. I certainly am not a mobile developer. I don't develop for Android or iOS, which I'm guessing is where a lot of Flutter is.
Yeah, well, that's what it originally came out for, right? It's kind of weird. I can't remember what. I think if I remember correctly, like first it was for like web apps, and then for some reason they tore out the web part and stuck with Android, iOS, and then they went back to web, and then they added desktop suddenly, and it could also run on supposedly what I remember, but I haven't seen anybody talking about it for a while, which was you could run it on like is it called a UWP or something? The Windows.
There is something like UWP.
Yeah. So like that's also what Xbox has, I believe. So they said that you could actually write a Flutter app and run it on your Xbox.
Right.
Supposedly, okay. But they haven't talked about this in a while.
I'm no expert in that aspect of it, but I know Flutter itself now. There's a sort of a constrained Flutter for more constrained devices being put together. I think it's called Tiny Flutter.
Okay, I never heard that.
Yeah, is it Tiny Flutter? There's also Flutter engines being developed. I keep an eye on all this, although because I don't use it, I don't have the detailed knowledge. But Flutter seems to be developing away from what they originally thought about it. But these things happen, don't they?
Well, I mean, originally Dart was for kind of like trying to write a better JavaScript or something like that, right? And now it's like it's a little bit neglected, I think. Going from Dart to JavaScript, I think is, to me, I feel like it's barely maintained. But again, I'm just kind of talking right now. But that's what I feel like in terms of the way it's going in other ways.
From my aspect, so to talk about the MQTT client, there's a browser based. You can use it in the browser. To me, it just works. I don't have any big feeling on how good the JavaScript that it produces is. It does just work though. The tooling just works. So fair play to it. I don't need to know anymore, if you see what I mean. It's certainly developed from where it originally came from. And what can we do with that?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy for it. Like now I'm kind of curious, right? Because I have my own opinion. I'm not going to say what my opinion is, but you've already upgraded to Dart 3, right? You've seen all the features that Dart 3 has. As someone who's been around the block a couple of times, how do you feel about these new features? Do you feel that they're good, they're okay, or what's your kind of feeling about them?
They're okay. I don't see anything that we couldn't live without. Maybe the extra visibility on classes is a good idea. To limit what people can do, you can't extend final classes, etc. And maybe the records. I think things like the records came in. Again, my opinion. You can shoot me down. Please do if you disagree. It was mainly to support how Flutter works. With error handling, it's quite good. You can return from a method or function. You can return a value and an error code at the same time. So you can check. Has it worked? Yes, this is the answer. No, it hasn't. This is the error code kind of thing, which you can do in other languages. So, but that to me, there was already a package that allowed you to do that. Its name escapes me, but I don't think it added. It's good. Don't get me wrong. It's better than it was, and you can switch on these results and things. But it wasn't as big a step as Start 2 with null safety. It wasn't that kind of leap,
Yeah, to me, I feel like the records, because records are basically like tuples, right?
Yeah.
And so I see it as somebody, like I do a lot of functional programming and with a lot of pattern matching, right? And so to me, if you're going to have pattern matching, then you definitely need to have tuples because that's they kind of go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure it will be useful, and people will use it and do more things with that. Will I ever use it? Yeah, if I need it, I'll use it. If it's there, isn't it? It stops you. It doesn't limit you. Adding things gives you more flexibility to create better.
Well, now that I found it to be very interesting because you said that the records is more of a Flutter thing. I've never thought anything like that. That's quite interesting. Like, do you have a reason why you think like that? Because I didn't quite hear it.
Yeah, sorry, I just get the impression that some of the upgrades to the language are done to make it easier for the Flutter guys to do Flutter.
It could be, yeah.
I know. So was it the array? Was it the spread operator, the dot 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 in arrays? Didn't seem to be a great deal of use, certainly for me for that packages. But it is for the Flutter. It gets rid of a lot of boilerplate, yeah, in the Flutter code. So, but you can't. I mean, you could argue against that by saying, well, like you say, you need tuples if you're doing functional programming or pattern matching. You need tuples, so the language needed it. You can take that. You can take that as well. You can't say it was done for Flutter. You'd never win that.
Yeah, I've never thought about that, so that's interesting. It could be, and I think that I wouldn't doubt that there's a lot of stuff that's been looked at extensively because of Flutter, right? Because to be honest, Flutter is probably the biggest thing that Dart's being used on that I can think of, at least.
Yeah, by far. I mean, I would go as far to say that if Flutter hadn't have come along when it did, Dart may well be dead now. Really, as an ecosystem, Flutter really moved it forward big time. So lot to thank for the Flutter guys, really. So yeah, if they have to have a bit of compromise now and again with the language, then so be it. Yeah.
Well, I just also want to say one more thing too. If we're talking about features being added and kind of some worry to it, records that do worry me now that I think about it, because I think back to Python, and when I see how you can return a tuple or tuple, however you want to call it. I don't know what you see. Have you ever worked with Python before?
Only as a basic scripting language, to run deploy scripts and terraforming stuff, not as a language that I've ever deployed anything in or produced anything in. So I don't know it in massive detail, no.
Well, what I say I've seen personally is people using, so you can return a tuple, right? What I've seen is people basically making a giant tuple and returning that tuple because they want to return multiple values from a function.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you think, but to me, that just sounds like a giant code smell.
Yeah, that's obviously it's like nearly everything can be abused, can't it? If you go to extremes with things, yeah, you still need standards. You still would need if you do anybody using it in the more professional way have coding standards, you would need a coding standard to say, hang on, you've got too many, you're doing too much here with this return value, kind of thing. Maybe Linter would pick it up and say, you're returning a lot from here. Do you want to do this? And suggest alternative ways of doing it. But yeah, if people are going to do that, they're going to do that, aren't they? You can't stop them really, I suppose.
Yeah, this is true. But sometimes I do want to, reach over and kill that person when I see something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but that really bugs the hell out of me.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, but it's world isn't actually open source world. Some of it's a bit rough at the edges.
Yeah, I think that some people. I mean, I interviewed the creator of curl, right? And yeah, and it's interesting to hear him because it's like, his stuff is used basically everywhere,
Yeah.
like on space shuttles and stuff. It's like you never really worry that your library may have some bug and somebody may die because it's used everywhere.
I worked for many years in the nuclear sector in the UK, and I just finished a 3-month contract back on one of the stations, and that uses Perl scripts back from the mid 90s, and it really is hard. It's a write once language because you can read it again now. What on earth does this mean? It looks like hieroglyphics. It's really hard, to get your head into something like that. I mean, at the time, the guys that wrote it at the time were wizards. But from a maintenance aspect, Perl is not the language to use at all.
I don't even know how I would describe it, right? Because I worked in a company, a finance vendor, right? And there's software engineers, and then there was the guys who basically did support, which was just keeping the system running. And the guys that kept the system running had their own system that they created. And these guys are what I would call script kiddies, whether or not you want to think it's positive or negative. They know scripting languages, and they're old school, so that means that they're Perl experts. So they wrote very complicated, as you said, very complicated, very giant Perl systems that ran with, I think, YAML or something crazy. And it's like, what? And this thing like had queuing system and everything else in Perl. I was like, oh my God.
God, yeah.
And like you said,
It's the problem is you're very frightened to touch it. I wasn't confident on changing it. I had to, there was luckily we had the author who knew this kind of was. He retired many years ago. He was 71. I had to phone him a few times and say, do you remember what this is supposed to be doing, guy? Give us a help here. If I change this line, I don't want the whole server to be compromised or anything. But it's quite interesting. The old stuff, it's quite interesting to work on the old stuff. But it does have a lot of challenges. Yeah.
Well, isn't your favorite thing to see in the code, don't remove this line or else bad things will happen? Something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Or even worse, there's no line in there to say that. And you think it is okay. Yeah. Yeah. Commenting standards were not what they are now.
Or the other one, which was like you see crap code and you're like, oh, I can fix this. I can write this one better. Then you come back, you're like, oh, that's why it's written like that.
Yeah. Why did I touch that? Yeah. And you just see lines like you'll have an array of something, strings or something, and there'll be a comment saying, do not change the alter of this, do not change the positioning of things in this array, but it won't say why or what would happen if you did. So you don't want to add anything to it, you don't want to touch it, yeah.
Yeah, well, you'll find out why when you do change it.
You do, yes. Which is all right on my dev box here, yeah, but not particularly at work.
Yeah. Oh gosh, you're taking me back to my days that I didn't enjoy. Well, I enjoy them in hindsight, not at the time. All those crazy things that would happen.
Yeah, it is hard, isn't it? Especially when I spent before I went back onto that project, I'd spent 2 years on AWS with VMs, terraforming things, modern stuff. Then you go back to Perl and you think, what is this?
Hey, at least you did Terraform, right? So many people never touch this newer stuff, so it's Terraform is kind of, it's nice, but it takes some time to get used to it and to get into it. It does take some time, right?
Yeah, when I said we Terraform, I mean the company was Terraform. We are terraforming experts for our AWS cloud. If I ever needed to do anything, I'd go to them first, or they'd already have something. It does. You have to think differently when you have to think of the architecture of what you're building in a different way to any other code package. But you get there in the end with the right people. It all comes down to people, doesn't it? You got the right people around you. It's a lot easier.
To be honest, I don't know which is more difficult, Terraform or just learning your way around AWS to begin with. Both of them are quite beasts.
Yeah, I did it that way. I learned my way around AWS to begin with. Yeah, before I went anywhere near the Terraform stuff. Doesn't help me particularly either because at work it was AWS. My cloud is Google Cloud. Yeah, so I'm into that more. And although the cloud providers are the cloud providers, and they all basically do the same thing, and they call it different names. It can be different. Yeah.
My favorite. I don't know if you ever listened to podcasts before, but my favorite Google Cloud moment was, so I'm in Hong Kong. They opened up a data center in Hong Kong, and of course they gave out credits like crazy. So I had credits, and I wanted to open up a Kubernetes cluster, and I tried it, and it failed. And I kept trying, it kept failing. So I was like, what the hell's going on? And I checked, is there any status for what's going? There's a problem. No, everything's green. I sent a support ticket, got them on the phone. They said, oh yeah, no, we know it's broken. Okay. So what now? It's like, so when's it going to be fixed? Oh, we don't know. So is there like a mailing list or something? No. You you just keep trying, and when it works, you know it's fixed. That was their actual answer to me. Keep trying. If it works, it's fixed.
Yeah, which doesn't really help, does it? Unfortunately, that's the advantage of working at a large corporate where they pay the money for the very fastest response you can get. We need this working now. Help us, but you need to pay for that, don't you? Yeah.
At least, I had a lot more fun on AWS in terms of like you can get like that support. You can probably get the same thing in Google Cloud, right? But I know before I had a company I was at, like we had actual support. The guy would call us. It was like hand holding over the phone, like, okay, you press this option. Oh yeah, good job. You're doing a good job, and I feel good. Oh yeah, thank you. Oh yeah, like you get that kind of hand holding. It feels good, and you actually learn a lot, and they spend time with you. But yeah, so if you can afford it, definitely get support. It's much helpful.
Yeah, it does work most of the time, though, doesn't it? Like I said, you're only really needed when it fails, but when it fails, you do need support. Yeah, sometimes.
All right, we kind of drifted off quite a lot of topics, but it's still good to kind of catch up over some of this stuff. But kind of coming right back, right? So MQTT, I'd like to kind of wrap up about the MQTT client and kind of talk about, obviously we talked about what are some good use cases for it. Now, as somebody who's played around with MQTT for quite some time, I always like to hear the opposite. Like, when would I not want to use MQTT? Do you have some situations?
What I'd start looking at now, don't forget, we're now moving into an age where boards, as they used to be, these smaller single processor boards, are massively more powerful now than they were. Even 2 years ago, you were getting maker boards with GPUs on them and all kinds of, with edge intelligence, artificial intelligence and edge processing, massively powerful ARM processors. You don't necessarily need anymore to look at MQTT as a lightweight solution for message exchange in constrained environments, because the environments are very rarely constrained, these days. There may be much better coming on. MQTT, like everything else in the world, will be replaced eventually with something that's better. Yeah. So I would say certainly, even if you're in the home IoT kind of guy who does his own home automation, if MQTT works for you, then by all means use it. But look at other more modern solutions before you start, from where we are now. Yeah, and you might find something better. So hopefully it'll still have a longish life, but it will come to an end eventually.
Okay, it's interesting to me. Everybody keeps saying things are going to end, and like you said, you're phoning up the guy who's 70 years old at home who maybe doesn't even know who he is anymore. Might be way past that prime.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I know installations that's 25, well, maybe even 30-year-old now that are still running MQTT. So, and they're still being maintained, and they will be for a little while. So it's not going away anytime soon. But I'm sure something will spring up. The open source world's like that, isn't it? Somebody will say we can do this better now because we've got better platforms, more powerful platforms. We can do something else. We'll see what happens.
I almost think that maybe we should treat it like Cobalt. Learn MQTT, because someday when nobody else knows it, you'll know it and you'll get a nice payment from it.
Yeah, you'll be the only MQTT developer out there, and it'll be a government contract forever, and you'll just be sat there doing stuff. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, possible. Yeah.
Anyways, it was good to have you on, and nice to kind of talk about different stuff besides MQTT, but also it's good to hear about MQTT because I always hear about it. I don't know enough about it, but now I feel I know enough to understand what it is and if I want to use it or not.
Good. Yeah, that's hope your listeners are okay and use the MQTT client if you wish to do so.
Yeah, so it's MQTT_client, right? So if people are interested to check it out. And yep. And can find you on GitHub. GitHub, is it /Hamblett?
Yeah, my GitHub name is Hamblett, SHAMBLETT. Yeah, it's all linked from the MQTT client page in GitHub. My Darticulate, it's all. If you start there, you can get to everything I've got read.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for coming on, and I'm looking forward to any new kind of big updates that you're working on these days. And now that you have so much free time, you might have one of those shower moments where you have a brand new idea that you want to start coding out soon.
Yeah, I've been spending time catching up on issues that I should have really got around to a long time ago. So I've been tidying up the rest of my packages in that sense. But yeah, I'm obviously thinking of other things now. So I'm open to suggestion. I have a few ideas myself, just to get the ball rolling again. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, to be honest.
All right. Well, looking forward to seeing what some of these new ideas are, and let's see what comes out of it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Again, thanks for coming on.
Okay, thank you.